Hi, I'm Kat, marketer turned brand storyteller,
And I'm Candice, educator turned entrepreneur.
and you're listening to
Not nice, clever.
We're two introverts who speak on stages around the country and work with top personal brands who also unapologetically require 24 to 48 hours of recovery time on the couch in our favorite sweats. All Netflix and no chill.
And to be clear, we're not quiet or nice. Together, we're redefining what it means to be an introvert who means business. It's time to show up and show off. Are you in?
On this episode of Not Nice Clever, we are addressing a common situation that we see arise with our clients. It's one sometimes that even Candice and I have navigated and worked through. And that is the idea of when you feel stuck or uninspired or out of ideas or just in a rut when it comes to content. Now, when we say content, a lot of people will think of immediately social media content. And yes, that definitely is one form of content, but this could also mean your email content. This could mean lead magnet content. This could mean content on your website or even content for collateral. So, really, just if you're feeling stuck, we're going to give you the down and dirty, the tips, the hacks, the things that have worked for us in true, not nice, clever fashion. So, Candice, where are we going to start with this one?
I'm going to start with just a really simple exercise that every person can do this week and commit to.
Love it.
So I want you to open up your calendar. If you don't have one, then I'm sure we have an episode about that. Like, listen to that and then come back here. You need to have a calendar, y'all. You need to know how you're spending your time, please. If you don't have a calendar, then commit to making one. And I want you to just look at your days, Monday through Friday. If you work on the weekend, look on the weekend. And I want you to write down anything that happened or circle or highlight on your calendar, anything that happened that demonstrates your expertise in your field. So if you were speaking at an event, if you were on a panel, then that's something that demonstrates your expertise. That's content. Now you can ask, well, what should that content look like? And there could be a billion things that content could look like. But I want you to first just start to identify parts of your day that demonstrate that you're an expert. And then I want you to ask yourself, now, how can I share that with even more people? Because maybe you demonstrated your expertise, but it was only with one client. That's fine. How can you share that with even more people? What you'll find is that there are 100 different ways that you have shared your expertise or demonstrated your competence throughout that week. So then you can't tell me, but I don't know what to talk about. I don't do anything special. Unless you really are that person who's done nothing all week, and then we have a different problem.
We do. We have a go back to go, do not collect $200 type of problem.
Yes. But what I find is that people often don't recognize what they're doing that is good, unique, helpful, that demonstrates what it is that they're great at because it may become so naturally to them.
Yeah, that's one thing. I was listening to a podcast episode over the weekend, and it was talking about how when we become expert in something, we're so embodied in it that it is like muscle memory, and we forget what it was like to first start to be good at something and to start to like maybe help or teach other people. And then it's just like it's natural for us, but we didn't start that way. And I think, yes, absolutely, looking at your calendar. And yes, if you're speaking at an event or you're on a panel, absolutely. But also, if you've ever answered a question,
Yeah, if you pick up your phone.
right, like by your team member, by a client, like that's a form of expertise. You're teaching somebody who doesn't know something that you know, and you're sharing that with them, right?
Yes. And so it doesn't matter if it's something that happened one-on-one. If you were able to demonstrate your expertise, you were helping them, you help them navigate a situation, then there is content within that conversation. And the part where people get caught up is they think that content needs to come from like thin air. Like it just gets downloaded in your brain. No, if you've been listening to Not Nice Clever for any amount of time, you know that the only way we have content every single week is because of the questions that y'all are asking us.
It's because of y'all.
It's because of the conversations that we have each day. We're never just coming up with a topic. We're coming up with a topic that someone's already asked us about, and
Yeah.
we're bringing it to you.
our planning sessions, literally, guys, we meet now every Monday for about an hour, and we'll either work on the cut, right, our monthly newsletter, or we'll work on planning episodes, or maybe like an upcoming event we want to attend together. But it is all just reflecting. I'll ask Candice, be like, hey, what have you been hearing? What have you been seeing? What have you been feeling? Like, what is coming up, right? We start there. We don't just be like, as experts in branding, this is what we think that people want. It's like,
Right. And we'll look at our DMs, and that might be
mhm.
something too. Look at your text messages, look at your DMs. What are people asking you in your text messages or DMs? What are people calling you about? All of those things are opportunities to create content. And when you begin to see your day-to-day activities as possibilities for content, then I think it feels like less pressure.
I know I've said this to you, and but I also like go back to using the term too, but I'm like the term content creation. And I like we understand it and get it and know it, but like for those who are just starting out, it seems to create this weird like block in their minds, like you were saying, like they have to like whip it up out of thin air. And it's like, no, like start by documenting. Look at your calendar, look at your text messages, look at your DMs, like document, don't create until you've gotten your reps in enough, right? Like us, and where we know we can blend the documentation with the creation and ideation that we have. But it's document, don't create.
I think something else that holds people back, like people feel stuck because they feel like they are saying the same thing over and over again. And my advice to that is that you should sound like a broken record. I mean, there are millions of ways to say the same thing. And as long as you're saying it with your own style and with your own experiences in mind, I think
Yeah.
that it's absolutely great and okay for you to talk about the same things. And actually, because I've been hearing that so much, I've been really committed to in my stories. I don't know if you've seen Kat, like where I'm just sharing, like I shared 2018, me making content
Hmm.
because there was like a Instagram story, you know how it says add yours?
There was, you were like still on
Yeah.
my ish. Like, I love that.
Yeah. It says like Instagram story, add yours, like what were you doing in 2018? There I was making content, mic, camera, lights, all of it,
Yeah.
doing that, right? And in 2018, y'all weren't following me, but the only reason I have Not Nice Clever is because in 2018 I was making content, right?
Hmm.
And yes, and maybe I think it was 2020 or 2019, the one that you were talking about, where I was like still on my same ish because my caption was like, you need to show up, you need to create content. And I've been talking about that for 6 years now, which is crazy to me. And still, some of you aren't making content because you feel stuck, because you're creating a prison in your mind because you think so many things need to happen before you actually push record. And the reality of it is, no, you just need to take one conversation that you had and put that in the online space in whatever way makes sense for you.
Amen. And also, I now feel very silly because the photo I shared as a part of that 2018 trend was me walking around in a balloon sculpture at Art Basel. I had not
I mean, that
started.
brought you here too.
That's true, though. That's
But,
totally
you
true because
know,
I left the
yeah.
Toxic X. I went off on my own. I had just started building my creative agency at the time. And like a friend of mine was like, hey, my friend's visiting from St. Petersburg. He's an artist that makes balloon sculptures and he's willing to pay you and you'll meet a lot of really cool people. And I'm like, what? And I ended up picking up
There
clients
you
from
go.
Art Basel. So, like, yes. So I wasn't on the content game then. I was like building my agency, but I was let me tell you guys, the way that I had to build my creative agency at that point in time was so much fucking harder than if I had leveraged content.
Right.
Like, truly, the amount of follow-ups, individual phone calls, emails, going door to door, getting turned down, like all of that, like hustling. Now the hustle is like, let me like record a hot take and then share it, and then it gets
Right
thousands
from
of
your
views,
couch.
literally, from the thing, from the waist up. So y'all don't see like my little baggy 49er red sweatpants, but they're still very fashionable. Yeah, content, y'all.
Oh, I don't even know what to say about content because it's changed my life so much. And I've seen it change the lives of my clients. Like one of our clients actually at Sell It, they
Hmm.
just launched their podcast. Two of our clients,
They did,
Alex
yes.
McKinney and Shane Aronson, launched a podcast called Privacy in Paradise.
I love the
And
name.
it's about stories of second homes and live in and work in kind of vacation areas. And we're just so proud of them. content is changing not just our lives, but changing the lives of our clients because they're creating opportunities for opportunities.
They are. I know it's hard to wrap your head around it if you have not been on the other side of it, like Candace and I have. And I was thinking about this like over the weekend. And if you look at the grand scheme of like the last 100 years, the fact that social media has only been around for like, let's say 10 years, it's been around for a tenth of the time, but it has completely crushed all the other forms of content or all of the other platforms in which we used to connect and market and brand and build community. Like, I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole here, but like I really like people need to understand like before it was like the newspapers. You take out an ad in the paper, right? You get your Sunday morning paper. My dad had a paper route growing up, right? Like that was how information was shared. And then it was radio, and then it was TV, and then the internet came. And then the world became so big when it used to be so small. And people consume and connect in such different ways now. It's the same idea, right? People are looking to want to connect. They want to learn. They want to find people that are like them. They want to be able to be in community. We're hardwired to be in community. We're just doing it differently. Instead of like showing up to, you know, the like local watering hole, or maybe sometimes I mean, I still sometimes do that, right? Like we all should do that if you drink, not judging. But it's just the way that people connect has changed. And now it just so happens to look like Instagram, right? Instead of like your regular weekly radio show, right? Or your regular, like instead of the late show, it's now the Not Nice Clever podcast, right?
That's
But
it.
it's the same method. That's all it is. It's not like this new thing. It's got new packaging, but the method's the same.
It's just communication
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And yes, you might be using a new tool to communicate, but we're communicating to connect with human beings.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about. And I think when you're watching people create content who haven't been creating content for way longer than you, it can feel intimidating to be a beginner,
Yeah.
but you just have to start. And the way that you start when you're feeling stuck is by looking at the day to day things that you're already doing and asking yourself, how can I showcase this in the online space so more people can see what I do? And like at the end of the day, it's really that simple.
It is. Do it once, allow others to see it, right? Like if, you know, there's that old saying of like if a tree falls in the forest, like does it make any sound?
Yeah. And don't think it's not a success.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other thing too, right?
And don't say that it's not a success because people aren't commenting and liking and busting down your door to work with you in the first week.
Yeah.
It's going to take 3 to 6 months of very consistent, intentional effort on social media for you to begin to see that it's working. And that might not even mean that you have a client. That might mean that you have leads. That might mean that you've had conversations. That might mean you walk in somewhere to a meeting and people are like, okay, I see you. I see you making content. And those are your first signs that it's working. And you just got to keep going. You're out there building your personal brand and you also have a team relying on you. But if your people don't know how to fish for themselves, the burden of new business always falls on you. Ouch, no thanks.
The opportunity we see, teach your team how to generate their own business.
The result, more time and energy back in your day so you can scale sans burnout.
Amplify by Not Nice Clever is the ace up your sleeve, a hands-on workshop full of replicable frameworks and actionable strategies that your team can put in place right away.
Your job? Sit back and let us work our magic.
Even CEOs need help sometimes. We've got you. Head to our show notes to get the deets. #outsourced. I think back to the idea of like the broken record, because I hear that too, right? People feel like if they say the same 3 to 5 things over and over again, they're going to seem boring or they're going to seem like they don't have a lot to offer, when really we know that that means that they are owning their niche, right? And they are building like these mantras, right? These things that people know them for. Think about if you're listening to this and you are a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, and think of like the little kids in your life, or like raising your kids, right? Or even train, if you're a dog mom or a dog dad, right? We like don't discriminate here at Not Nice Clever. How many times do you have to tell your kid, right? Eat your vegetables and then you get dessert. How many times do you have to tell them, like, don't touch the stove, otherwise we're gonna have to spend the night in the ER? How many times do you have to tell them, like, how long does it take to teach them how to ride a bike? How long does it take for them to get math I don't even get math anymore. That's why I use calculators. But it's like we understand that training and teaching takes decades, and yet somehow we expect to understand and know and master and own the content game here in 2024 overnight. And it's like, y'all, that's not how we're wired as humans. We don't learn that quickly.
No. But y'all are over here watching those people with clickbaity Instagrams that are like, I grew 100,000 followers in 30 days. And you're like, well, that's not happening for me. So it's not possible. It's like, they're probably lying, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Well, even if they aren't lying, they're probably starting at a very different point with very different resources or skills or budgets than you are. So, like, take it all with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Like, take it all with a grain of salt. I know. I roll my eyes when I say that.
Yeah. You can't compare anyone else's journey with your own. And I think that some of those things make it misleading as to how this happens. And really, it just happens with consistency. And you're not going to, there's no magic pill for any of this.
There's not. So, looking at your calendar is one really good way. I think another really good kind of like prompt, and obviously, y'all can go to ChatGPT and say, give me 50 prompts for Instagram content, right? And like, not to say that that's very little context for that prompt. Like, you can have a much more built out context, but just to get it going, like, I love using ChatGPT as a brainstorming buddy. It doesn't write or do everything for me, but it helps brainstorm. But like one thing that I really like thinking about is what are the questions you get asked all the time by clients and by customers? Because imagine if you took a frequently asked question, you recorded your answer, you put it out there as a part of your evergreen public content library to live on your LinkedIn profile, pinned as a featured article, or to live at the top of your Instagram profile, pinned as a reel. And imagine if somebody who's probably timeline wise 3 months out from being ready to work with you sees it, consumes it, already is like, oh my gosh, how did Candice know that that was my question? And then by the time they're ready to work with you, you don't have to spend time answering those fucking questions because your content already answered it for you. And you're pre educating your audience and shortening their learning curve and increasing your conversion rate and also making it a whole lot more fun to do business because then you get to like dig into the really fun and creative and challenging stuff instead of answering FAQs.
And you become even more valuable to your audience because you have a library of content that's working for you. Like, I know, Kat, you and I have both sent episodes of our podcast to our clients.
As answers, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, okay, you have an hour with me, and this is the container in which you've purchased.
Mm-hmm.
And you asked me this question, and I know I actually did a whole 30-minute episode on this. We could talk about this in 30 minutes here,
Totally.
or I could send you the full episode and you could talk to me about something else right now. And like, it's even more value. They're getting even more time with me because I can quickly send them a blog that I already wrote about that topic or a podcast that I already did about that topic because they're not the first person to ask me that question. And now we get to spend our hour together really diving deep into something that is going to make the most sense for them specifically.
Yes, I love using supplemental resources like that. And there's so much for us to pick from now. There are
Yeah.
literally over 170 episodes. How many hours is that, do you think?
I don't know. It's a lot of hours, but we have all the way up to 181 episodes planned. This is 180 right now, which is
180. Yeah.
insane. Yeah.
Insane. Plus all of our Instagram content, all of our content on LinkedIn,
Plus all of our blogs, every newsletter we've ever sent.
every podcast we've ever guest spotted on, like so much content to choose from because look, the content is pre-educating, right? It builds up value, it builds up interest, it builds know, like, and trust so that when you get to the point of working with somebody, you can get right to the heart, right? Okay, where do I need to have an effect? Where do I need to create a result? Where do I need to cause a transformation that's going to forever change that person you're working with to the point where they're like, Kat, I would have paid you 10 times what you charged, right?
Yep. I hear it all the time.
You need to raise your rates. You're hearing it too much then. Or no, maybe. But, if you never get to the point of documenting that content and building up that library, you're going to spend all of your live time repeating yourself. Then you really will be a broken record and not in the way we want you to be a broken record, right?
Right.
We need to come up with a different word for it. What, like you mentioned communication. I just feel like the word content, people need a new word. It needs a rebrand.
Content needs a rebrand.
Content, the word content, not the actual thing, because that's just like a channel with which we can connect, but It's just become such a weird word this day and age. I feel like we need clever crew. If you can come up with something.
It's loaded. There's a lot of emotional responses
Right?
to the word content when there doesn't need to be.
Exactly. And I don't want that getting in the way.
It can be so fun. Someone was telling me the other day, like, oh my gosh, like I can't even think about making a video. Ugh, like making a video is so exhausting. I can't believe you do that all the time, Candice. And I've said this before, but like it's easy when you know that you're going to make money. It's like,
That's
oh, if
true.
I know that every time I make a piece of content, I get a client, then why would I not?
Yeah.
Like, then you're excited to make a video because you know that it's going to mean more business. And if you can, and it doesn't happen immediately, but when it does happen, it just keeps happening.
Yeah. It compounds.
Yes, it compounds, and that's what I told her. I was like, "You would be excited to make content if you knew it was bringing you business. If I told you, 'Hey, you're gonna make X amount of money if you just make a video,' would you do it?"
Hmm.
She's like, "Well, hell yeah." I was like, "Well, that's basically what I'm telling you. That's what's gonna happen."
Maybe. And by the way, if you know that Candace is talking about you and you're listening to this, please listen to Candace because she's not wrong about it. Maybe we need to like call, okay, this isn't the word, but like it's literally a form of like business development,
Yeah.
right? Like people, I feel like people think of business development as like, oh yeah, I need to invest in business development, right? We need to develop business. We need to grow the business.
Yes.
Content is the new age version of biz dev, y'all. Like, you want to
Mhm.
grow, especially if you're a solopreneur, especially if you're an individual entrepreneur, because y'all don't have the VC funding, you don't have the entire team, you don't have the corporate infrastructure. But all of those massive entities that make a shit ton of money and impact have business development reps, they have business development departments. Like, oh my God, it just hit me. Okay, your content is your business development army. That's your business development workforce, like your business development library. Like, that's what it is. Like, whoever's listening, if this is hitting, like, please let us know. Like, for me, I'm getting excited. I'm talking with my hands a lot. Right? Candace can see she's laughing at me. But like, it is as crucial as business development. That's what it does for us, right, Candace? It just like constantly is working for us, whether or not we're out sick or in Cabo or in Japan or like getting a massage, you know?
Yeah, and then when you have people who've already experienced working with you, what happens is people share Kat and I's posts all the time.
All the
So,
time.
like, our clients will be like, "Oh yeah, this one really hit for me. I'm going to send it to my 5 friends." Then they send it to their friends and they're like, "Oh, our friend worked with you and she recommended you and she sent us this piece of content." And like that's how it happens. But if there was nothing for them to send their friends, then they could still say your name, but it's even more impactful when they also hear your voice from the podcast or also watch a video of you.
Yeah.
And then they reach out. And so I think you might be stuck on the wrong part of content, which is overthinking it or thinking it has to be super creative and thinking that you're not ready. And the reality of it is, ready is a decision and you're already doing the work each day. It's just time to put it out there.
Well said.
Anything else?
I think we should just end there. If we haven't convinced you by now to invest in making content, we'll continue telling you in true broken record fashion because we love you, Clever Crew, and we want it to change your lives in the way it's changed ours. And if you know 5 friends who could benefit from this episode, feel free to hit that share button, start a group text. Let's change some fucking lives.
Thanks for joining us on Not Nice, Clever.
Remember to follow our podcast wherever you listen to audio.
And if you found today's episode valuable, please share it with your friends.
No gatekeeping here. Remember, we love to see our Clever Crew grow.
Signing off, you're not so nice, but oh so clever besties that mean business.
See you soon.